Rule 63. In the world of internet memes, it states, for every fictional character, there exists a gender-swapped counterpart of that character. Created in the mid-2000s as an addition to the humorous and popular rules of the internet, which were populated on the controversial site 4chan, Rule 63 was initially used primarily in reference to gender swapping in video games, a trend that may have started in the 90s when Capcom designed both male and female versions of the characters in the fighting game Darkstalkers, thus allowing one of the fighters a finishing maneuver in which they alter their opponent's gender before dealing the killing blow. Video game gender swapping would also be seen in fan-created characters such as Bowsette, a female version of Mario's iconic villain, as well as the more official Linkle, an alternate universe female version of the Legend of Zelda's hero Link, who appeared in the game Hyrule Warriors. But of course, the notion of gender swapping is certainly not exclusive to video games, and in recent decades has become more and more prevalent and discussed in the world of film and television. On the small screen, a number of formerly male characters have been reinvented as women for new generations. When Sci-Fi launched their critically acclaimed reboot of Battlestar Galactica in 2004, fans of the original series were surprised to see the popular character Starbuck, originally played by Dirk Benedict, now instead embodied by Katie Sackhoff, and the character of Boomer, once played by Herbert Jefferson, now portrayed by Grace Park. In that case, it might have only been different characters using familiar call signs, but undeniable gender swapping can certainly be seen in a number of other recent examples, such as Lucy Liu's Joan Watson in CBS's modern-day Sherlock Holmes series Elementary, as well as Parker Posey taking over for both Jonathan Harris and Gary Oldman as the antagonistic Dr. Smith in Netflix's most recent iteration of Lost in Space. Brad Pitt's iconic performance as mental patient Jeffrey Goins in the film 12 Monkeys was reimagined as Jennifer Goins for actress Emily Hampshire in Sci-Fi's TV adaptation. And, interestingly enough, Grace Park followed up her reinvention of Boomer on Battlestar Galactica by jumping into another gender-swapped role in a TV reboot, taking on the role of Detective Kono in CBS's Hawaii Five-0 remake. Gender swapping has perhaps been most prevalent in the world of comic book adaptations, looking to finally adjust the gender equality of fictional worlds long dominated by mostly male heroes, with female characters often relegated to only romantic interests or other supporting roles. Both Marvel and DC have reinvented a number of male comic book characters as female characters on the small and big screen. The Ancient One in Doctor Strange, Jerry Hogarth on Jessica Jones, Ghost in Ant-Man and the Wasp, Taskmaster in Black Widow, and Ajak in The Eternals all fit the bill, while the DC series The Flash on the CW network has gender-swapped multiple Flash villains, giving us female versions of the Bug-Eyed Bandit, Spin, Top, Null, and the Mirror Master, who was reinvented as the Mirror Mistress. Now, of course, there are clear arguments in favor of this sort of gender swapping and what it can offer a film or TV show creatively. Besides simply helping achieve better gender parity, it also offers exciting new storytelling avenues by allowing for different character dynamics and relationships. And it certainly allows for female viewers to see themselves more consistently represented in the fictional worlds that they too love, but whose original creators were not always building with them in mind. But that doesn't mean these sort of decisions aren't still often controversial. Just ask the minds behind 2016's female-led Ghostbusters reboot, or the writers and producers of the most recent iteration of Doctor Who, no matter what you might think of the final product itself, still faced intense, often ugly criticisms from fans not happy to see their favorite franchises undergo these sort of changes. It's a debate that is most likely not dying down anytime soon, as it seems a safe bet filmmakers will continue to explore the possibilities of gender swapping, to the delight of some and the dismay of others. Perhaps, at the end of the day, the only way to really ensure your gender swapping of a character won't potentially upset anyone is if you're lucky enough to do it before the world even meets that character in the first place. The year is 2010, and Sony Pictures are about to rethink and reinvent a buzzworthy spy thriller, changing it from a showcase for one of the world's most popular actors to one for one of the world's most popular actresses, and perhaps, in the process, launching the next big action franchise with Salt.
0.
welcome once again to Failure to Franchise, the show dedicated to some of Hollywood's most infamous mistakes, missteps, and misfires. This is Trev.
And I'm Chris. But holy moly, it's an Angelina Jolie movie.
Anyways.
You love my intros. You love them.
Okay, I know you worked hard on it. I'm sure you spent 3 days writing that, multiple drafts. Boy, you probably spent as much time writing that as the writer's assault. Anyways, I guess we should say that is today we are looking at 2010 Salt, but it's also the beginning of a new theme month for us. Chris, I know you love theme months, so do you want to tell the listeners about that first before telling us about the movie?
Of course, it is now March, so we are starting March Mix-Up, where today we're going to be talking about Salt from 2010, and then March 29th, we're going to be talking about the Rhythm section from 2020. Now, longtime listeners might realize that, hey, don't you come out every 2 weeks? Well, in March 15th, we are going to be releasing a brand new spin-off show, Success to Series, where we will be talking about James Bond 007 and, just kind of get a little bit more positivity out in the world and in our feed here. So I think it'll be nice.
Allow ourselves an opportunity to share some thoughts on some of the franchises that have worked, and more specifically franchises we enjoy, and talk about why do these things take off the way the other films we look at do not. And it's nice, still though, March is dedicated entirely to the world of intrigue, the world of secret agents.
Yes.
And that's starting today with Salt. So Chris, tell us a little bit more about the 2010 film Salt.
It is directed by Phillip Noyce, who directed The Bone Collector, with Angelina Jolie, actually, The Saint, Clear and Present Danger, Patriot Games, and a brand new favorite of mine, Blind Fury, which I quite enjoyed. Recently watching that last year with you and some other friends, and I just had a great time watching that one. Salt is written by Kurt Wimmer, most known...
Our old friend Wimmy.
The Wimster.
He's back.
He's most notably famous for making writing Equilibrium, but even more famous because he was a star in our Mila Jovovich of 2021, where we looked at the world of Mila Jovovich, and we talked about Ultraviolet, and he wrote that film as well. So definitely go check those episodes out if you haven't.
Wrote and directed, I believe, that one.
Yes, correct. That was all him.
Yeah, they did not let him direct this one.
No. Salt has a budget of $110 million. Domestically, it made $118 million. And worldwide, it almost made $300 million. Yeah. So, actually, quite the financial success.
Yeah, this is a hit. So again, we'll talk it a little bit. There are actually kind of more known reasons about why this one didn't get its sequels necessarily, but we'll talk about that. And we'll also obviously, we haven't talked to each other yet about how we feel about the film, but obviously we'll both decompress on, did we want those sequels? Are we bummed out about it not happening? Yeah. But I think before we get there, this is always exciting to me. I always, sometimes we look at movies where it's just someone had an idea, they're like, let's make this dumb movie, and someone said okay, and that's it, right? We don't have much to talk about. But Salt is another example where, even before we get into what I hope will be an interesting conversation about the film itself, this has a really kind of intriguing backstory. Chris, wouldn't you say?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. This actually goes back to an interview with Kurt Wimmer from November of 2002, where he was talking, I think he was pimping Equilibrium at the time, and he was stated that he was working on a bunch of scripts, and one was called The Far-Reaching Philosophy of Edwin A. Salt.
Rolls off the tongue.
Yes, horrible title. Horrible title. And weirdly, he said that this project was very much about me and my wife. We'll circle back to that
okay.
when we talk about the movie, because that doesn't really make much sense. But sure, okay, fair enough. So this one was going to be another high-action spy thriller, in the vein of Equilibrium, with its oppressive, paranoid political system, brainwashing, the whole 9 yards about being overthrown, like it's kind of a tyrannical government. Once again, we're going to talk about that when we come back to the movie, but this obviously went through a lot of changes in the years leading up to release.
Yeah, and I think we can't also dispute, like, we can get back to the history in a second, but I guess we should just say it now. By the time we get to, around 2007, where Columbia decides to make this movie and brings in Wimmer and, is intrigued by his script, we are now in a post-Bourne world. And that's obviously a very, very important part of this discussion. I think we talked about this before, but it's really hard to, properly kind of state how influential the Bourne films were. It's weird because it's one of those franchises where I feel like that's not discussed enough today,
Right.
or it's kind of forgotten. And I think maybe, do you think it's because they kind of shit the bed twice with that franchise in terms of the Bourne legacy and Jason Bourne? Is that why it's not remembered as well as it should be? Because that initial trilogy of the Bourne Identity in 2002, Bourne Supremacy in 2004, and Bourne Ultimatum in 2007 had such gigantic impact on Hollywood. And be able to remember, too, that's like, we're talking a trilogy that's based on these like decades old Robert Ludlum, like dad kind of spy novels. And they made those into, that trilogy was the kind of blockbuster where, I mean, especially for Supremacy and Ultimatum, that had the same level of hype as like the MCU movies today. People were like very, very jacked for those, especially by the time you get to the third one. It's also an intriguing franchise, and that's one of the few franchises you can point to where it's really the sequel. People liked Identity. It obviously did well enough to get the sequel. But with Bourne Supremacy, when Paul Greengrass comes on, that's the one that really blows up. And suddenly you have everyone like changing the look of their action. The James Bond franchise that we're going to talk about soon takes an entire pivot to be more like Jason Bourne. Batman Begins, and Dark Knight, you can see the influence of Bourne in their fight scenes, that kind of shaky cam, close-up action. So yeah, this is also definitely, in both story and just the general vibe of what Hollywood is looking for, this is definitely a Jason Bourne-influenced film.
Yeah, a less operatic action film, more about kind of the swift brutality of the choreography and filmmaking style, for sure.
Yeah. And there's also, obviously, some thematic story stuff here, too, that's connected to Bourne, which we'll get into when we talk more about the story.
It's a shame that Jeremy Renner killed the franchise.
Well, and if, what he didn't kill, Matt Damon and Paul Greengrass came back to put the final bullets in for some reason. But that's a conversation for another day.
So you're talking about the Bourne Identity franchise. But there's another spy in the midst of Hollywood. His name's Ethan Hunt, played by Tom Cruise. And this script gets the attention of said Tom Cruise. And he's really interested in playing Edwin A. Salt.
Which I think at that point they had just kind of shortened the title to only Edwin A. Salt.
Yes.
Still not great, but we're getting there. You're so close, guys. You're so close.
Yeah, I guess, well, fortunately or unfortunately, we'll talk about it, but Tom Cruise decides, you know what? This is way too close to everything I've been doing and plan on doing with the Mission Impossible franchise.
Yeah, and there's some different kind of stories about this as well, right? We sort of mentioned it also goes through multiple directors while he's attached. They first bring it to Terry George, who had directed Hotel Rwanda. I think he is signed on for a bit, but then he passes. They then bring it to Peter Berg, which of course at that time, and still today, is also thought of as kind of one of those, CIA action type directors. So that makes sense. And then finally they do bring it to Noyce.
Noyce in your Noyce!
And Noyce obviously, sees it through. But Noyce is still there when Cruise is first attached. And I think you're right. I've definitely read that Cruise was concerned about it being too much like Ethan Hunt in the Mission Impossibles. I think that's weird, though. That can't be the entire story because he signed on to this in the first place, that's not a concern that would have suddenly popped into his head. I know, I'm sure maybe they tried to rewrite some things, but I've also read, and I don't know if he does, Chris, that there ended up being some concerns at Columbia because he was still asking for $20 million. And this was around the time where his star had actually fallen quite a bit in the wake of his couch jumping antics. And suddenly he didn't seem as marketable. I also read something very funny where they said there was also some kind of internal memos talking about how suddenly some people at the studio were kind of balking at maybe Tom Cruise is too old to be the lead in a new action franchise. And I just think that's hilarious because this movie's, we're going on over 10 years. And since that time, he's just become a bigger, better action star. His later Mission Impossible movies have him doing even crazier stunts than he was doing before. So if that's the case, they definitely screwed up. But I kind of buy the didn't want to pay him story.
Yes. Did you? Speaking of Tom Cruise, Mission Impossible, today, did you see the news that Mission 7 is costing $300 million.
I mean, that's Hollywood nonsense, but at the same time, judging by the last, few movies, probably going to be worth it.
Isn't that crazy?
So,
And I get it, but Fallout cost under $200 million.
but don't forget that this, the new one has also suffered so many delays, has to have the COVID element put into it. I wonder if
That's fair.
Yeah.
He also
pay off all
probably
those people he yelled at.
Yeah, there's a lot of lawsuits right now on that mission set.
I don't ever want to see it again. Ever.
Plus, he's probably getting a lot more than $20 million.
So no, but Chris, I'll let you kind of keep up with the story in a minute, but let me just set you up by saying, so as you said, so for whatever the reason, whether it's the studio doesn't want him or whether he drops out, Cruise does drop out. Now I think, we talk about often how Tom Cruise is kind of the last movie star, but there's certainly other actors who are kind of in his realm, around this time. You think of other big stars of the Brad Pitts of the world, the George Clooney's. There's a lot of people probably end up on a short list with Tom Cruise, right? So when you lose Tom Cruise as your leading man, what's the next natural choice? Where do they turn?
Well, Columbia Pictures executive Amy Pascal suggested Angelina Jolie. So right away, quite the pivot from Tom Cruise. They had actually spoken to her years ago about being part of the Bourne franchise when Sony had the rights. Jolie is on record saying, no, come back to me when you want me to play Bond or something like that.
I don't want to play the Bond girl. I would want to play James Bond. Yeah. Which I feel like is something you've heard many actresses say, right? But
of course, quite the pivot. But this is where we gotta have to talk about Angelina Jolie a little bit, right? Mm-hmm. And I'll just say my piece first. I really, really love Angelina Jolie. I think she's a phenomenal talent, but also I just think she's an awesome action star. So I do understand why they would have, if they're not going to go with a male lead and they think, oh, let's gender flip the script first, let's go with Jolie. I love her as Lara Croft. I really enjoy Wanted. Mr. and Mrs. Smith with with Brad Pitt is an awesome movie. Still holds up. I watched it just recently. She has you'll agree with me probably, but she has a beautiful, elegant ferocity to her. Do you know what I'm trying to say? She's easily on the red carpet, looking just absolutely extraordinary, and then you can totally understand if she had a pistol underneath her dress, and then she would just go kick everybody's ass.
Well, to just step back for a second to something we were just saying about Tom Cruise, Angelina Jolie is a movie star.
Yes.
She is a movie star in a way not many modern actors or actresses are. You look at her and you realize cameras want to film her. A random cameras, if a party or something, want to find her. And she just has this it factor where she's mesmerizing on screen. I think you're right. She's an underrated actress even still today, I would say.
I agree.
And I know you and I, because I remember us having this conversation last year. There was a film. It was one of the Warner Brothers films that debuted on HBO Max, Those Who Wish Me Dead.
Yes.
Which was, at the end of the day, just kind of this simplistic throwback 90s action film. And I think both you and I agreed that it's fun enough, but what really cements it and makes it work is Angelina Jolie in the lead role. Mm-hmm. There's just something about her where it adds just this extra level of prestige, and she gives it her all, and you instantly are captivated by her, and that's what she can bring to a project. And that was quite kind of a get at this time. If you're going to lose Tom Cruise, as you said, she's coming off of a pretty decent run here of being Lara Croft, of having films like Mr. and Mrs. Smith and Wanted. So, and it's still an intriguing, she'd already done, obviously those are action roles as well,
sure.
But Salt is kind of a new direction for her and a little bit of kind of putting her in that spy realm. So yeah, I think she's a great dramatic actress, but she is also I don't think it's discussed enough how badass of an action star she is, for sure.
It's funny you're talking about how just how much of a star she is, and in the MCU, we're not really shocked or amazed by many celebrities becoming part of that franchise, right? Yeah. I was genuinely very surprised of them getting her for Eternals.
Yeah, I mean, I still haven't seen Eternals, but I remember when they did sign her, and this still shocks me because I've heard otherwise, but my just assumption is like, oh, well, she'll be in like 10 minutes and then die, right? I just didn't think she would be, kind of sticking around, and more power to her for that. But yeah, I just think, and we should also say too, in terms of like physicality, obviously we'll probably talk about this in like the review, but I think, sometimes people will talk about her as an action star and talk about how she's not that kind of, she's not like the buff, very manly female action star, and yet it never you buy her as just being tough. Like it speaks to her again, right? Maybe it's because she was known as being such a wild child and this very kind of intimidating person for a long time early on in her career. Obviously, we know she's very much grown up, and now she's this amazing humanitarian and just like seems like one of the best people in the world morally, Mm-hmm. But she had this like run where she was just like this kind of like very, F the world punk attitude, and I think she had, and that is still there in her eyes, right? So you look at her and you go, yeah, she could probably kick my ass. I don't care like how much she weighs or whatever, right? She is a badass.
Yeah, she's got that little bit of crazy,
Mm-hmm.
a little bit of crazy, and it just totally works for her. And yeah, I'm just a big fan of her. I always forget that she's been in the Disney family for a while now with Maleficent. I always forget about that. So I guess maybe going to Eternals wasn't that big of a stretch. But yeah. I don't care to see Eternals 2, but we'll see if she shows up.
Yeah.
So once Jolie joins the project, she is really interested in reworking the film with its dialogue and on a script level. She actually brings on Brian Helgeland, which, again, long-term listeners of our podcast will know that he was the writer on Robin Hood 2010. Yeah. So,
one of.
Yeah, one of.
one of 17 writers. But
yeah, exactly.
So, yeah, he's brought on to basically, as you said, he kind of helps with the kind of redefining the character development and dialogue of the script, because now we're obviously changing Edwin A. Salt into Evelyn Salt. But at the same time, Wimmer does stay involved as well. Wimmer, kind of works with Jolie still to kind of rework some other elements of the film. Notably, it's talked about how he's brought on to rework the third act actually, I guess we can talk about this later on, why she wanted to make that change. But you can see how there's still some kind of discussions about how, obviously, she likes the general concept, but some of the Edwin Day Salt stuff she's not so attached to. And Helgeland and Wimmer both work with her to kind of, and that's a movie star, right? When you have both screenwriters going like, whatever you want, Miss Jolie, of course. Please make our movie, right? Like, that's pretty clear here.
Big time. So other than Jolie, there were two male supporting players. One, Liev Schreiber, mm-hmm. and the other, Chiwetel Ejiofor. I like both of them. Yeah. I really like Liev Schreiber. I think he's awesome, and I actually never watched his Ray Donovan show, but like my parents are a big fan of that show. But he's just when he pops up in things, I'm always happy to see him. He has a presence. He has just a great look, a great voice. I really like that guy.
You must be doing something right when you can walk away from a film like X-Men Origins Wolverine with your dignity intact, right? He's like, yes, he's the good thing about that movie.
Well. Look what the cat dragged in.
Why?
Why? You don't call. You don't write. How else am I supposed to get your attention?
Totally.
Yeah.
Even the entire movie, he just calls Logan Jimmy.
Jimmy.
That's fine. Like, Liev Schreiber can do whatever he wants. No, I love Liev Schreiber as well. And then, yeah, Chiwetel Ejiofor. This is actually before his big breakthrough of 12 Years a Slave. But at this point, he was definitely one of those actors who I think, like, cool movie fans already liked, He was the bad guy in Serenity, which I think he's incredible in that.
Young miss, I'll need all the logs on behavioral modification triggers. We'll have to reach out to Rivertime and help her to come back to us, no matter how far our family is. This is a good death. There's no shame in this. In a man's death, a man who has done fine works. We're making a better world. All of them. Better worlds.
Yep.
He'd already been in stuff like Children of Men and Inside Man, American Gangster. So he was starting to make his name. He was like definitely one of those rising stars at this point. And then, yeah, just a few years after this, he would finally get 12 Years a Slave and like really kind of blow up in a much bigger way. And he's another one. I've never seen Chiwetel Ejiofor give a bad performance. I mean, I feel like that's impossible. I think he's made some questionable movies here and there. Most people do.
Sure.
But he's just always like a very, very dependable player in a film.
Yeah, like I think both of those actors are never like a draw for me for the film.
Yeah.
But I'm always excited to see them on screen. You know, like Angelina Jolie is going to get me to the theater.
Yes.
I'm not rushing out to the new Schreiber or Ejiofor joint.
Sure. Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, I think they occupy that interesting place of being very dependable supporting players. I'm not to say that they can't lead a movie. Of course they can, but I think you're right that I think they've kind of both settled into a comfortable role in Hollywood, essentially.
Yeah. So now that we have our cast, we start filming. And as we were saying, Jolie is very much involved in the film from the ground up at this point. And she's very, very interested in making this a kick-ass action film. So she wants to be on screen as much as possible. She wants to do as many stunts as she can. We want to see her do the action. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like, and less camera from 30 feet away, more close-ups with her actually doing stuff. And yeah, her fighting style was described as a mixture of Muay Thai, Shaolin Kung Fu, and Jeet Kune Do, which was considered by the stunt team the most suitable for her physique. And then Krav Maga for its rawness, its brutality, and aggressiveness. Mm-hmm. So, yeah. Unfortunately, they actually had to stop production for a bit, because she got a little bit of a head injury. Yeah. So that's...
Yeah, she got very, very into it, obviously.
Yeah.
But again, more power to her. You know, like, hey, look, she came to this with the same energy Tom Cruise would have if they hadn't gotten rid of his old ass. You know, because he throws himself all in, and she wanted to as well. And I think that's always admirable that she wanted to. And it does, you know, it can help a film. I think it is very noticeable when the action scenes are suddenly not your performer.
Yeah.
Right. So I think she had the right idea here to be all in on this. And I think she also definitely saw it as a potential kind of new signature character for her.
I guess moving on from filming the movie and being done with principal photography, post-production comes around, and producer Dee Bonaventura is very, how do you say, I don't want to say angry, but definitely doesn't like the movie. And this is no commentary on what we think, but just they need new scenes. So they hire Steven, what's his name, Zalian?
Steve Zalian, yeah.
Steve Zalian, and he's most known for American Gangster, Hannibal, Schindler's List, and Mission Impossible. So he is hired for uncredited rewrites on the film and reshoots. So a lot to do with the action, weirdly enough. Well, Trev brought this to my attention, but there's a couple of different cuts of the movie.
3 different cuts. If you get this movie on Blu-ray, one of the selling points of the Blu-ray is there are 3 different cuts of the film on it. There's the theatrical, there is the extended cut, which I believe is just a cut that adds like a little bit more violence in, and then there's the director's cut, which is quite significantly different, I believe. Yeah, so this is definitely one of those films where it's kind of, if you're a fan of the film, it might be worth your time to kind of look into the variations, because we're not talking small little, one has a part where she walks in a door and the other one doesn't. There's some pretty significant differences between these cuts.
Which I'm interested to talk about, because I have seen this movie now twice. I saw it in theaters, and then I just watched it on Canadian Netflix. So whatever cut I got, I'm pretty sure it was the theatrical one. And then Trev watched the director's cut, correct?
Yes, and so I also saw that theater, so I've actually now seen both endings, and I'll talk about that in a little bit, because like the ending I saw last night as I revisited this film was new to me. So now I'm just excited to talk about the film in general and both endings. So let's dive in.
You gotta walk in. A defector.
He's Russian.
Neural scan is up.
What's your name?
My name is Vasily Orlov.
Nothing. He doesn't exist.
Today, a Russian agent will travel to New York City to kill the president. This agent is KA-12.
The KA program is a myth. Scan says he's truthful.
This guy's selling smoke. Wrap it up, Ev.
Don't you want to know the name?
You're good. You can tell the rest of your story to one of my colleagues.
The name of the agent is Evelyn Salt.
My name is Evelyn Salt.
Then you are a Russian spy.
Where'd she go?
What are you doing there? What are you doing? This doesn't look good.
I'm not a Russian spy.
On the ground!
I'm innocent! Somebody is setting me up!
Maybe Salt is who she says she is.
Maybe it's your department. Mine is catching her so we can find out.
Drop it!
All right. I have a hair on my tongue. I'm like crazy Joe Davola from Seinfeld. Okay. CIA agent Evelyn Salt is highly respected by all, including her boss, Ted Winter. Unexpectedly, a Russian spy walks into their offices and offers a vital piece of information, that the president of Russia will be assassinated during his upcoming visit to New York City to attend the funeral of the recently deceased U.S. vice president. The name of the assassin? Evelyn Salt. Concerned about the safety of her husband, who she cannot contact, Evelyn goes on the run. Just who is Evelyn Salt, and what is she planning? Because her actions begin to raise doubts among everyone she knows.
So I'll go first, Chris, if you don't mind. So as I mentioned, and I'm going to say a couple things here, which again, I don't want anyone to think what I'm about to say is any indication of how I feel about the film. I'm going to keep putting that off as long as I can. But let me just say, I saw this in the theater initially, opening weekend, I believe, in 2010 when it came out, and I have not watched it since. So that's kind of one element to keep in mind. And I also realized watching last night that it's a film that I had really forgotten most of. This was almost like a first-time watch for me to a certain degree. Now, I say both that, and that might sound very negative, but let me actually come in and say quite the opposite. I remember liking it at the time, and I have to say I quite enjoyed my return visit to Salt. I think this is it's a pretty darn good movie. I won't say it's a masterpiece. I think it has some issues, but I think overall it's a real good time. And what I was really enjoying watching it again was it definitely now feels like a throwback to a sort of action film, which we don't get really anymore, and which I miss. And we'll definitely talk about that, what I mean by that, and I'll go into more detail. It is, it stretches believability at times. It has some very ridiculous plot elements, but I think it is at every moment completely anchored by a really strong, leading turn from Angelina Jolie. I think she is the rock here that's holding it together. And then there's one other thing which I don't want to spoil yet, but I think there is, in terms of the story and in terms of the overall concept of this film, I think the power of it, besides her performance, is it has a twist to it that I really do think is very, very effective and quite unlike any other Hollywood action film of its ilk. And I think the movie gets a lot of goodwill for that twist. So yeah, I think in general, it's an adult action thriller, and that's just a genre that I kind of, as I said, I think it's really underserved nowadays. So it's kind of nice to revisit it. And I'm going to say, I mean this in the best way possible. I feel like this is the kind of film that I could easily maybe forget again and revisit in a few years and again have a good time, right? I actually think that's almost a good thing in this movie, is that maybe because it's not a big blockbuster, had many sequels, maybe because it's not part of a larger universe or anything, and maybe because of some of the story elements, every 10 years or so, I might forget most of it and be like, you know what, I think I remember liking that Salt movie, and sit down and once again have a good time. And who knows, every time maybe I get a different ending too. It's like choose your own adventure. But yeah, I think this is a fun one. I really dig this movie.
Well, I hope you liked doing that monologue, because I stopped recording you because I'm going to echo basically everything you're saying. I had you in the first half.
Yeah.
No, I think this movie is pretty awesome. I also saw it, maybe not opening weekend, but I remember when and who I saw it with. Like, it was one of those, like, memories that you have, right? And I remember us both walking out of it being like, that was fun as hell. Yeah. And like you, I have completely forgotten every single second of it. And while I was watching it, this movie kept me guessing. And it kept grasping at my knowledge of the spy genre and kind of flipping it around from scene to scene. Again, I don't want to talk about the twist, and we don't want to talk about, the turn or whatever happens later on in the film. We'll go as long as we can, because this movie is one of those films we talk about on this podcast that I am genuinely upset we didn't get sequels. I for sure think this could have been Jolie's Mission Impossible, and for reasons which we'll get to later. But I had a blast with this movie. She's she's just an incredible action star. Yeah. And she just has such a presence that if you threw, I don't want to name actresses because we don't like making fun of actresses.
Nope, we don't.
And
never.
Never. But I just, she is kind of the perfect casting for this role. And amazing pace, an hour and 40 minutes in and out. And I just, it's a rockin' good time. I really, really, really enjoyed it.
And look, we've given old Wimmy, old Wims over there, Kurt Wimmer, we've given him a hard time before when talking about Ultraviolet. But let's give the devil his due here. It's a testament to the concept he came up with and the overall story of this film that the one thing I did remember was the twist. Now, to a certain degree, because I remembered that I went into this, and again, I'm not going to say it yet, but I remember going into this last night and thinking, boy, I don't really remember much, but I do remember this. I remember that this is the reveal. But that's all I remembered. I remembered the reveal itself and not the fallout of the reveal. And that's important because the twist we're walking around here, listeners, is about halfway through the film, or maybe even like before the halfway point. And that twist then sets up the rest of the film. And that's what I didn't really remember. I was like, oh, I know this thing happens, but what's the fallout of it exactly? And that's where I think this movie is so effective, because once that twist happens, it actually sends the movie in a completely different direction than you're expecting. Because I do think you go into this completely expecting it to be one kind of movie, a movie we've seen many times before. And you know what? I probably still would have enjoyed that movie with Angelina Jolie in the lead role. It would still work. But this movie actually has the balls to do something completely different at a certain point, and then you're like, yeah, you really don't know. Suddenly you feel like you're in the hands of filmmakers who are willing to, really kind of upset the genre a little bit, as you said, and it puts you it puts you like on your toes, and like, wait, what's going to happen now? And so big props to Wimmer, big props to Angelina Jolie, and I was going to save this until the end. I'll say a little bit more at the end, but I'm with you. The fact that there's not multiple Salt films after this is like a total bummer now, thinking about it, like revisiting it, and especially just because I said, other than Mission Impossible and Bond, obviously, I suppose, we just don't have many series like this. Yeah.
And if we do, it's all in a fucking volume now. It's made in a dome, and there's no real stunts anymore. It's all CGI doubles. It's speaking, I mentioned Eternals, and again, I was so excited to see Angelina Jolie in the MCU, and every one of her action scenes, she's CGI doubled, and it drives me batty because this is a great action star you have, but in this new age of filmmaking, it's just easier to do it in post. You know what I mean? It's just easier to people are going to go to this movie no matter what. Who cares? But in this film, we talked about Jolie training to do the stunts proper. She was just coming off of the birth of, I think, her fourth baby or one of her kids. She has a few, but she got into great shape for this film, and the camera is always on her. It's always up close. I was gonna say that this movie is missing how do I say this? It's missing a really incredible action set piece. Like if you're gonna distinguish it from the Mission films, there's not really one incredible death-defying stunt, but the stunt that I loved was the one when she's on the run from the CIA and the FBI after being falsely accused of being a Russian spy. And she's jumping from semi-truck to semi-truck from the top of it and going down the highway at incredible speed. And then the camera is with Jolie. You know, like it's you're never really watching it from hundreds of feet away. It always feels like she's doing that stunt, and there's such a realness to that. And she gets fucking banged up in this movie. Yeah. That is one thing that we are missing in action films nowadays. When we live in a world where Vin Diesel and The Rock count the punches they take, and they've made it this mathematical equation so that they can't lose. You know what? Action movies seem dead right now. Okay.
Well, and they're throwing each other through walls, right? Like everybody's
Yes.
a superhero now, and Salt is a very capable character who knows how to handle herself, but she's not a superhero.
No.
She can be beat up. She is beat up, and this is always a big thing for me. I'm going to say something, Chris, and you'll know exactly what I mean because you were just alluding to it. You feel the action in this film. Mm-hmm. It's not clean. It's not sanitary. The fight scenes hurt. You know, you feel her pain. It even does the thing where when she escapes from CIA headquarters at the beginning, as you were talking about, she spends the next, during the entire escape and a little bit after, she's barefoot. Yeah. And I know that's a little thing. Maybe they're just doing that to get the Quentin Tarantinos of the world. Who knows? But beyond that, beyond any weird fetishes people have,
or the director of Mortal Instruments.
It's also the Die Hard factor, right? Where when someone is barefoot, when your hero is barefoot, it adds like this extra level of like empathy and sympathy because we're very queasy about that idea, right? Of like, oh my God, what if she like breaks a toe just running down, you know, and then they're like jumping from car to car or out of the buildings. So they do that very well. She gets the shit beat out of her in the third act. You know, she's not. It's weird because Angelina Jolie
in the first scene, it's a brutal torture scene where she's in North Korea, I think.
Yes, we should mention this.
Yeah, like the movie opens and they drag her body out of this like solitary confinement where she's only wearing her underwear, and she's like just broken down to shit. She's bleeding everywhere. Her eye is fucking the size of a grapefruit, and they're just waterboarding her with gasoline.
Yeah, they stick a hose down her throat and start pouring gasoline into her throat.
Yeah. That's the opening scene, and then right then and there you're like, wow, okay, I know what I'm in for.
Not since Die Another Day has a spy movie started with a better North Korea torture scene. Did you think about the beginning of this movie is actually very similar to Die Another Day?
No, you're right. It actually is.
In terms of even having to like trade her for someone else, right? But yeah, no, mentioning like what I was saying about her getting like wrecked at the end. What I will say, and there's just no way around this. Though this is the funny irony of it, is we realize in this, and she's shown it multiple times in other films as well. For as gorgeous as Angelina Jolie is, she's very willing to be like non-glamorous in a movie. Yep. She is willing to allow herself to be beat up. The only problem is she's Angelina Jolie. So she's willing to do that, but she can never not be gorgeous. You know what I mean? She can never not be glamorous. So even when she is getting the crap beat out of her, even when she's covered in blood, even when she's bruised up, heck, even when she's posing as a man, you're still like, oh, that's still Angelina Jolie, though. I'm still feeling a certain way. There's just kind of no way around that. That's the thing about, and I think Hollywood realizes that, and obviously that's utilized to its advantages as well. But that's just, I'm not saying that as a criticism, but wouldn't you agree? I mean, she's always like super sexy and just incredible in this. So,
well, two things. One, can I read you something that Jolie said? And then two, I'm actually going to send you something. So,
okay.
Again, staying roughed up was extremely important to her from beginning to end in the film. There was even talk for a long time about adding a scene in the end, because, I mean, if you've seen it, I don't end so pretty. And there was a discussion about it. Do you kind of catch up with her glamorous again? Because this is what audiences would want. And we made a definitive decision of no, it's very, very important that we don't do that to her. So we always angled it back into trying to make it just harder and more raw. Mm-hmm. And that's what's kind of cool about this movie is that like it openly and like gloriously celebrates Salt's like humanity, I guess. You know what I mean? She's still a human being. She's not a superhero. Now, the other thing you just mentioned, at one point in this film, she goes undercover as a man. Okay. Now, Trev, do you got your phone with you?
I do. Yeah.
Okay. So they do this makeup job on her, I'm just going to send this to you, and then I want your reaction of my immediate thoughts when I was watching the movie, and then we'll throw it up on our Instagram, at F2FPod.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong about this. It's not one of the movie's better moments or effects. I was more... Well, do you want to tell the listeners just in case?
So just explain what you're looking at right now.
Okay, well, as you said, there is a scene in this film where Angelina Jolie as Salt poses as a man with very Mission Impossible-esque facial prosthetics. That's what I was about to say. That's what I was thinking of the scene. I was thinking about the fact of how this was almost a Cruise movie. There's that discussion about how he didn't want to do this, at a certain point, he didn't want this to be too similar to Ethan Hunt. And Mission Impossible is like, well, here's one of the sequences he was probably talking about, because this is just straight out of Mission Impossible, even to the degree of then we see her rip off the face. Yeah. But yeah, so she poses as a man. And I was just thinking, watching the scene, like, well, that's not very convincing. Like, that does not look like a man. That looks like a woman with prosthetics on to look like a man. Although you have sent me a side-by-side of Salt in her man makeup next to the Matt Damon puppet from Team America, World Police. Now, I'd say of the two, I'm probably more attracted to Angelina Jolie as the man than I am the Matt Damon puppet.
Sure.
But yeah, it's just weird. Like, it's one of those sequences where you almost wish... I think that's another case where she probably thought that was really cool to actually do it, right? She was like, well, I want to actually wear the makeup and I want to be able to pull it off. But you're almost like, I don't know, they probably should have went the Mission Impossible route here and just hired an actor to play that part and then done like the little trickery then of having her pull off the face, right? Well, like, it should have just actually been a man, because it's like you don't really buy that anyone would look at that person and not think that's suspicious.
Yeah, it's pretty distracting. It's pretty distracting, and even the way she like walks around, like you can tell she's trying so hard to act underneath this rubber mask all over her face.
Well, this is what I mean, and I don't want to be crappy about it, because she brings her obvious particular strengths to the film, but there's just something about how incredibly beautiful Angelina Jolie is, right? Like, not to sound like a perv or anything, but I'm not saying anything that hasn't been discussed about her for a long time. She's just this kind of like otherworldly beauty. And you sometimes are up against that in a film with her. So I was thinking of, as you said, so she works at the CIA. This Russian operative comes in and tells the CIA, well, Evelyn Salt is actually working for us. She's an assassin. And now she has to go on the run. And what the operative has said she's going to do is kill the Russian president at the funeral of the vice president. So first of all, as we said, there are some like little like logical, goofy parts in this movie for sure. One of them being that she goes on the run. She knows that everyone's looking for her. And so where does she go? She goes and books a room at the hotel right across the street from the church where this funeral is going to be the next day. And I'm just thinking, I don't want to tell the CIA and the FBI how to do their business, but if they're searching for who they believe to be a female assassin that's going to try to do an assassination at this church the next day, I would just have a little, have a block on that hotel. Hey, did any women check in today? Right? Like, I know she has fake IDs, but that's it, right? She doesn't change her appearance that much. She just checks in with a fake ID. You're telling me that wouldn't flag for anything? But then beyond that, the very next scene we see, she goes to like the funeral, right? They are bringing the vice president's casket through the streets in a parade going up to the church, and she's just in the parade crowd walking around looking like Angelina Jolie. And all I could think was, if I was Ted Winters, her boss, I would just put on APB that says, hey, look for the most gorgeous woman you're going to see today. That's our suspect. If you see anyone on the street where you're like, oh my God, that's Evelyn Salt. That's who we should be looking for.
That leads into one of our favorite film critics of all time. His name was Roger Ebert. And what you're saying, Trev, is that this movie has some absurdity to it, would you say? A little bit of... It stretches logic at times. Well, Roger Ebert gave this movie his coveted 4 out of 4 stars. And honestly, precisely for that reason. And so he's quoted here in his review from July 21st, 2010. It's gloriously absurd. This movie has holes in it big enough to drive the whole movie through. The laws of physics seem to be suspended here the same way as in a Roadrunner cartoon. Angelina Jolie runs full speed out into thin air and doesn't look down until she's in the helicopter at the end. Jolie is one fine-looking woman. You don't need me to tell you that. It's why she gets the big bucks. The movies have celebrated her eyes, lips, profile, biceps, boobs, waist, butt, thighs. Salt pays tribute to her ankles. Anyone who can jump from the heights she does here in the way she does it may die from a lot of causes, but a sprained ankle won't be one of them.
Yeah, not wrong. A lot of jumping in this.
Yeah, lots of jumping.
And I mean, you're right that the movie could use maybe one more or one bigger signature action scene, but all the action is good. That's the thing, right?
Yes.
You get a lot of just consistent smaller action scenes, and I do want to give credit where credit is due. There is an idea in this, in one of the action scenes, that I've never seen done anywhere else, and it's awesome. And I can't believe I forgot this, because it's one of those things where you're just like, oh man, that's so cool. And that is the scene where, so at a certain point, they do catch her, they arrest her, but obviously, the movie's not done yet, so we're pretty sure she's probably going to escape. Well, how does she escape? Well, as the police they have her in the back of their car, they're driving her off to, police headquarters somewhere. She makes her daring escape. She starts fighting the police. And she ends up getting a taser and using the taser on the cop in the front seat who's driving. And what she's doing is she has the taser up against his back, and he's pinned to the steering wheel, essentially. She's got the seat pushed forward, so he's pinned there. And then anytime she hits the taser, that makes his body convulse and press down on the gas pedal. So she's now controlling the car through the use of the taser. I thought that was so cool. I'd never seen that before. Yeah. And honestly, it's one of those things where the movie knows it's funny, too. You're laughing at it because, I mean, I don't care if this stupid cop, is getting tased by her. More power to her. And yeah, that was a really cool sequence there. And just in general, that whole chase sequence on the highway is really well done. So yeah, no big Ethan Hunt, Tom Cruise-esque stunt, but a lot of really good smaller action sequences for sure.
Definitely. Yeah. And again, right up in Jolie's face. So it's it really just sells it, and it just makes it more exciting. It makes it more brutal. And then she's cut up, she's shot at, she's bruised throughout the whole thing. It's just it's a really visceral action film, and I quite loved it for those reasons.
Yeah, and I also, we already mentioned Liev Schreiber and Chiwetel Ejiofor being in it. I think, I'm guessing we would both agree they're both really good in this. I mean, we just talked about how they're always good, and that's no different here. I enjoy both of them. I just want to shout out two other cast members, Chris, if you'll indulge me, because again, I think one of them, this was very, very early on, and I don't think the world knew Corey Stoll quite as much at this time. And Corey Stoll gets one of the highlight moments in this, in that, you know what? It's something you don't see very often. I've seen it before, not too regularly, but I'm a big fan of person has bomb inside them. What a great action beat, So props to Corey Stoll there. But also, Chris, should we talk about the usage of the great Andre Braugher in this film?
Andre? Oh yeah. Okay. For a second, I had to think about it for a second. Captain Holt is himself.
Yeah, it's so Andre Braugher's in this film. I don't know if he has a line. He is just kind of he's almost a glorified extra in this. And you might think to yourself, well, is that because this was early on? Oh no. No, this is post Homicide: Life on the Street, which is the TV role that obviously elevated Andre Braugher, his Emmy-winning performance as Detective Pemberton in that role. That's post this. He's already at this point done Glory, Primal Fear. A couple years before he'd been in The Mist. He was just the voice of the Silver Surfer in Fantastic Four, and then for whatever reason, he's just a dude in this in the third act. That's kind of always next to the president, and I was just really, really confused by that. But knowing that this movie had a lot of post-production tinkering and knowing that there was kind of some reshuffling, that does make me wonder, was there initially more Andre Braugher and he was a victim of that kind of tinkering? That would be my guess, because I don't think you hire Andre Braugher just to be a guy who walks down the hallway.
Slight real-time correction for you, Trev. Lawrence Fishburne played Silver Surfer, so just wanted to throw that out there.
Oh, you're right. I'm looking at his filmography, and I forgot he's actually the general in Rise of the Silver Surfer. I guess I was just thinking his voice, they both got that silky smooth voice. He could have been the voice of the Silver Surfer, yeah. Well, honestly, not to correct you, Chris, but Doug Jones was the Silver Surfer, and they dicked him over. Let's face it.
As they tend to do with Doug Jones.
Yeah.
But story for another time.
Yeah.
At this point, I think, Trev, we've danced around it enough. It's safe to say to our listeners that we really enjoyed this movie, and if you're down for a pulpy, sort of absurd throwback to action filmmaking of, I don't know, like the late 90s, maybe even.
Or if you're just one of those people who's always like, why are movies so long now? Well, you want an hour and 45 minute like action blast? Then
yeah, go watch this and then come back, because now we're going to spoil the big reveal that happens halfway through the film. So, Trev, you're more eloquent than I am, so take it away.
Well, I just want to point out, so in spoiling this, let me just kind of walk to it by saying, Chris, I don't know if you did this on purpose, or this is just how well the movie works, that you weren't even thinking about this, but you earlier said, when you were talking about the beginning of this film, and you said, well, when Evelyn Salt is falsely accused of being a Russian agent. So what this movie does that I'd never seen done before, I haven't seen done since, as I said, we've seen so many movies. Heck, the first Mission Impossible, right? Where your hero is falsely accused of being a criminal or being on the other side. And then this movie suddenly, halfway through, reveals, hey, you know what? That guy wasn't lying. Evelyn Salt is, in fact, a Russian double agent. And I remember in the theater, that being, I don't want to say mind-blowing. I don't want to oversell this. But that's what Chris and I were alluding to. When you find that out, the movie does it very, very, very cleverly. There's just a sudden moment where you go, holy crap, like, they weren't kidding. She is planted in the U.S. by Russia, and she's been a sleeper agent this entire time. And now suddenly you don't really know where the movie is heading, because you see her meet up with the other Russian agents. You see her watch as they kill her husband, and now you really are kind of like unsure of what could happen next. And that's like that to me is like, other than her performance, that's the other big selling point of Salt. And that's where I do want to give Kurt Wimmer credit. And I think that's probably what drew talent like, Tom Cruise to initially be intrigued by this. The idea of, oh, how do you make a movie where the hero is revealed to actually be this like kind of sleeper agent from another country halfway through?
Can I give you some of my real-time note-taking while watching this movie? Because again, I wasn't kidding that I had completely forgotten this movie. So I did forget the twist. So here's some of my thoughts while watching. She's definitely looking guilty running away. Haha. Probably not the best idea to flee immediately and look so panicked. Now we're at the funeral scene. It's got me guessing. Is Salt really bad? She's definitely going to use that spider venom, though. And then I get to the reveal, and I was like, wow, damn. So she really is the Russian spy. This is a great little twist on the whole who is the mole plot. She is the mole, and this really kept me guessing throughout, and I don't know what to think now. And I just thought that was great. And you just said, like, they kill her husband in front of her, too. Like, the other... So, like, okay, let's back it up a little bit. After she assassinates the president, she gets caught by the CIA, and then she escapes again, and she then goes to find her comrades, that have planted her all these years ago. And she goes to, like, this boat, and she sees all these people she grew up with. Because, again, Trev, we didn't even say this, but this is almost like Black Widow before Black Widow.
Oh, there's no way to watch this now and not think about that. Yeah.
Like this in the very beginning, it's alluded to that Russian children are being bred as assassins and being planted in the States. And again, Salt is one of them. So she like has relationships with all of these people around her, and they're all welcoming her, like, oh, you're back, sister, and like, oh, hello, brother. Like they're all one big family. And she looks at the main guy, Orlov, and she's like, do you see that I can be trusted now? And Orlov's like, yeah, absolutely. Takes her around a corner. They have her husband and immediately kills him right in front of her as the last test of loyalty to see if she's going to break. Because again, she was placed here at such a young age. She was never meant to get married. She was never allowed to have attachments, but she decided to marry this man. And they just want her to be full-on Russian spy at this point.
Yeah.
And,
Chris, can I just briefly ask you, in the version you watched, how did they kill her husband? Did they shoot him?
Yes, they shot him in the chest.
Okay, so interesting enough, here we have our first big deviation. I don't know if you know about this.
Oh, okay.
But in the version I watched, they drown him. And it is actually much more intense. Because, you just said they shoot him in the chest. That's a pretty quick death. In the version I watched, she is forced to watch as they put him into like a tank, like in the ship. and they fill it up with water, and he stares at her as he like struggles and drowns, and she just kind of stares down, like watching him with this like dead look on her face. And there's a very particular reason I bring that up, because it's going to tie into later when I talk about the changes in the end as well. So yeah, that's definitely the first probably big change between the two versions.
Interesting. I can see the pros of both of those. You know, like the one is the shock of mine, and like the getting the jump on her. Yeah. But in that one, that sounds way more intense. Way more intense,
and that's the thing is then you're watching her watch them, take this innocent man, because he does not know that she's a Russian spy, and she is just watching her husband be murdered, and that's where now you really are questioning, how do I feel about this character? And I will say again, to give this movie credit, I think in most versions of this film, what they would do is she would, there would be the scene where the Russian handler comes into the CIA headquarters and says, oh, Evelyn Salt, she's an assassin. And she would be, no, I'm not. She would go on the run. And then perhaps she would find out that she is a Russian spy, but she was brainwashed to never know that until she heard like a certain keyword or something, right? That's what you do. You'd go the Manchurian Candidate route where, well, to be fair, she can still be our hero because she was always kind of really believed she was American. But this movie says, no, forget that. She has always known she's a Russian spy. Like, she has always been doing this. And that's the thing is, like, you can say the movie's not playing by the rules at the beginning, but that's not necessarily true. You're just watching it through her perspective, and you realize, oh, the entire first half, you were watching her just desperate to not let her secret get out. She feels that she has suddenly her secret has been uncovered, and now she has to, like, get the hell out of there. Mm-hmm. And that's pretty bold. That's pretty brave. And I'm surprised, we look at so many movies that get noted to death and have, cowardly studios. And obviously, as you said, Lorenzo Di Bonaventura did have problems with the film. But just the fact that they're like willing to allow that and to say like, yeah, we'll have our hero watch as her husband gets murdered. And yeah, we'll reveal that she's been a Russian spy this whole time. I mean, more power to them. Now, obviously, the movie is still Salt, and she is the hero. So clearly there's like more to it. And yes, there ends up being kind of more twists and turns. And we still get her eventually into a somewhat heroic spot, but never by dismissing or retconning those reveals.
Right.
She ends the movie and she is still, and always was, and always will be, a Russian operative that came to the U.S. to fuck us up. and what we reveal is it was actually, this is the cool like tragedy of the film. It really was the relationship with that husband that kind of made her start to like think, oh, maybe there's something else for me. Mm-hmm. And he thinks of me as a better person. She's very moved by how it's her husband that kind of moves the earths to get her freed from North Korea. And she's never really had someone care about her in that way. So her husband is the person who makes her want to be a better person, but for her plan to work, she still has to allow him to die. That's pretty compelling, even for what sometimes is an otherwise like dumb action movie.
100%. And if there was one note that I would give the film is that maybe give a little bit more of their relationship. And again, maybe that is in your director's cut, because I know from the notes and from the research that there was extensive flashbacks.
Yeah, and I got a lot of flashbacks, actually.
Okay, so like I got minimal amount. Mm-hmm. And again, you've seen the theatrical, so you know what I'm talking about.
Well, but I don't really remember it. I mean, did you get, because I got the flashback where they first met at like where he was working with like the bugs. Did you get that? Or
I did, but it was very abbreviated. Like it was pretty short. And then I got them when he saved her from North Korea, or it helped. But not a ton of their day-to-day.
I agree with that. Even in my version, I will agree with you there. I think him dying is powerful no matter what, but because we later learned that it's kind of his sacrifice. Well, it's not even a sacrifice, but more that it's his relationship with her that is the turning point for her. I do agree that we probably needed even more flashbacks. We needed to see them as a couple more for this to work. And I like that actor too. Her husband is played by August Deal, who was actually recommended to the movie because he had just worked with Brad Pitt in Inglourious Bastards. He is the Nazi soldier who kind of uncovers the truth in the tavern scene, the one who realizes that they're lying. Yeah, so he plays the husband in this. And I would have liked to have seen more scenes with them. I don't disagree. I think the other note I would have, Chris, and I wonder if you agree with this, is the movie does tip its hat a little too much, I think, when she is then talking to Orlov and he just kind of says offhandedly, but because it's a Hollywood movie and you know how it works, when he goes, like, well, it's not just you, of course, there are others. At that moment, I feel like you know what's coming, right?
Yeah.
You're like, well, I wonder what other character in this could possibly be a part of this. If only because at this point, too, you're thinking to yourself, what's the benefit of Orlov walking into the CIA and blowing her cover? Right? There's like no reason for that to happen unless there is another element to this on their side, on the Russian side. So I do think the movie like maybe tips its hat a little too much to a later reveal, which I don't know if we want to spoil, but that's how I felt.
Yeah, I agree. I definitely, after the movie, I thought it was confusing as to how this movie even gets ignited. You know what I mean? Like how the narrative even takes off with Orlov coming in there and being like, there's a Russian spy here and her name is Evelyn Salt. Like, he knows who Salt is. Mm-hmm. So it's a little confusing as to like, let's talk it out here. Maybe I'm just missing something, but are they pinning it on her, knowing that they're going to get the other reveal to actually do the big thing?
Yes. So actually,
Okay,
I don't know if that's stated in your version, but in my version, when we get what we're already in spoiler territory, so screw it. Let's just do it. Yeah. So Ted Winter, her boss, Leo Schreiber, he is revealed in the end to also be a Russian spy. And so she doesn't realize that, though. So this entire time they were working together, both been Russian operatives, and I believe it's insinuated that he knew she was, but she didn't know he was. And he actually says that the entire reason he had Orlov come in and blow her cover was so that he could pin everything on her, and he could end up getting away with it. Because what he's doing is like the bigger element of it. She's just meant to be a pawn as he essentially sets World War III into motion. Mm-hmm. So yeah, they were using her as a patsy, which is why you then are also allowed to still sympathize with her, right, and allow her to still be the hero because she's getting screwed over by both sides.
Yeah, definitely.
And Chris, if you'll allow me, if you'll indulge me, just when one little thing from my notes I wanted to make sure I drew attention to. When we do get the reveal of Leo Schreiber also being a villain or being the bigger villain, there's this great moment where they're kind of separated by glass, right? She's on one side of the glass, bulletproof glass, and he's on the other. And they do one of my favorite things in movies, which again, not enough movies do. I am a sucker for any time someone shoots directly at someone's face in bulletproof glass and the person just doesn't flinch. Yeah. Boy, I love that. Or where she's just shooting right at his face and he's just like looking at her. Then she pulls out the machine gun and she just like keeps firing. Damn, that's good. It's just just a little thing, but always something I enjoy.
No, right there with you. I'm always one of my absolute favorite scenes of No Time to Die was in the beginning of that movie when Bond stops the car and he's like doesn't trust Madeline anymore. And then that guy's just walking up to the Aston Martin and he's just shooting him in the face and he's not moving. It's fucking awesome. It's awesome. And the sound effects, everything about it. It's so intense and it works every time. Now that we're on the topic of the ending, I gotta know, how different is this ending compared to what I saw?
Okay, so at this point, we've already spoiled some reveals. If people don't want to hear the endings, then definitely stop. But because I can't talk about them without talking about what they are. But the ending you got, Chris, the ending that I saw the first time in the theater is after Salt has kind of saved the day. The Chiwetel Ejiofor character has her arrested, but we've started to see how he's started to kind of question. He was the one initially that's like, she's definitely a spy. We definitely need to get her. But because there's a moment where she has him like dead to rights and doesn't fire, now he's starting to wonder, well, why wouldn't she have killed me? That doesn't make any sense. So now he's starting to question if she's good or bad. And then in the theatrical version, they've arrested her. He has her in a helicopter. They're talking, and she tells him essentially like, look, you know, right? You're starting to get it. I was a Russian agent, but I'm not working for them anymore. I'm against them. And in fact, if you help me escape, I promise I'll go kill the rest of them. Mm-hmm. Right? So he kind of like helps her orchestrate an escape from the helicopter in a way that makes it still look like she just kind of got advantage of him and got out. And so that's the ending you got, right? Where she jumps out and then we see her kind of go into the woods.
Yeah.
Now, here's another significant change, Chris, because my ending actually also necessitates an earlier change in the film. You saw her kill Orlov on that barge after they killed her husband. I did not. In my version, in the director's cut, after they kill her husband and Orlov tells her the plan, they cut to her returning to America and meeting up with Corey Stoll's character, who's another Russian agent. So this is also, to me, like more effective because now we have not seen her do anything to like turn good yet. You're still like, what is going? So she's now coming to the White House to take out the president with Corey Stoll. Is that what's happening here? And Orlov is still in play. And in the version I see, after she saves the day, after she defeats Liev Schreiber, she is arrested, and we then cut to her in an interrogation room, and Chiwetel Ejiofor comes in and basically says, well, actually now, because the president has told us that it was Liev Schreiber who knocked him out and started killing everybody else in the room, knocked him out and started to set the missile launch. He's like, one of you had to turn off the missile launch. We know he started it, so clearly you stopped it. So I have to assume you're actually good. So you have this kind of this more calm version of that conversation. Mm-hmm. And then she still kind of she escapes, and now we cut to another Russian headquarters where we see Orlov kind of in charge of the program. And here it's very Black Widowish as well. We see young Russian girls being trained to be kind of the next generation. And Angelina Jolie, or Salt, shows up there. She's kind of wearing this black kind of burqa outfit, and she comes into Orlov's office, and they have a brief fight, and then she knocks him out, and the movie ends with her. Remember I said in my version he made her watch her husband drown? She takes him out to a dock. She specifically she's shot him twice in the legs, but she has not killed him. She ties him to a stone, and she throws him into the water, and he drowns looking up at her as she looks down at him. And then you cut to kind of a far away shot of the headquarters that she's at, and it explodes. So now you realize she is on this mission of revenge where she's going to go take this entire organization down. I have to say I kind of like that a little better. I think it's just a little bit more effective, and it ends with her a little bit more kind of badass and kind of out there, righting the wrongs of this program.
I much prefer that. And I like my ending. Don't get me wrong. I like the way my ending works.
That's the thing. This is one of those rare cases where you have two completely different endings, and they're both fine. They both work actually. There's no. I'm not saying the theatrical ending is bad, because I remember liking it at the time when I saw it. But I just think my ending has a little bit more. As I said, actually, it's not even so much the ending. It's the moving Orlov's death. I think it makes her a little bit more complex throughout, because you're kind of wondering where she's coming from a little longer.
And that's got to be the reason. Obviously, producers changed that because they probably thought they couldn't have their new Hollywood heroine, action star, go too long without being go too long with the audience wondering if they're bad or not, right? I
didn't even think that, but you're dead right. Actually, that's almost certainly why they changed it. No, we gotta tell them as quickly as possible that actually she's good though.
Which is so frustrating because these people are gonna watch the movie anyways.
I know, right? They've bought their ticket. They're not. What do they think? You're gonna get an hour in the movie and be like, "What? It's about a Russian? I'm out of here." They're gonna see it through. Yeah.
And again, we talk about this a lot. Just bonehead producer decisions. And again, I like my ending with the theatrical, but that is the only explanation. And yeah, that's a weird one, because you're so right. There's an added level of tension for the entire length of the film. The entire movie is hinging on this who is Salt, which is kind of the marketing of the whole movie too.
That was, yeah.
And yeah, don't get me wrong. I do love when she takes revenge immediately at the halfway mark and just goes on a killing spree of all the Russian operatives in that boat. And she drops some grenades in slow-mo, and it's fucking badass. And she's just take no prisoners, and it's super cool. But I think your directorial ending, director's cut ending, is just far more impactful on an emotional level. And it's got that poetry, it rhymes thing.
Again, it's like poetry, so if they rhyme. Mm-hmm. Every stanza kind of rhymes with the last one. Hopefully it'll work.
Of the drowning.
Lucas loved it. Yeah. Well, and to that element, I was just thinking this as you said that. I actually, now I'm starting to think about it. I like you said, your version is fine, but having her immediately kind of turn and kill Orlov and all the other Russian operatives on the boat does then beg the question: why didn't she just save her husband moments before? Right? If she was going to kill them all anyways, she shouldn't have let her husband die. I guess in your version, it just happened so fast.
And that's what it is. It's a shock. It's a shock thing.
Okay, so yeah, because like in my
because
version,
when they're talking, sorry, I'm just talking over you. I apologize, but when they turn the corner, they're talking like they're buddies again. Like they're talking like, okay, yeah, we're gonna do this next, and it's glad to have you back in the family, and then turn the corner and boom.
Yeah,
and it's like an immediate like quick, like how is she gonna react to us killing him? Like, what is she going to do? Is she going to crack? Is she going to break? And it does focus on her face. It's all in Jolie's performance. And I wonder if it's the exact same shot as well. Because, it very, very well might be. And there's a lot of emotion going on there as well. So it could have worked if it cut back to him being drowned. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, like, yeah, I mean, the fact that it being a shock, I guess, does change it. But yeah, to me, again, like the director's cut, which adds this kind of more like level of moral complexity here, I think not only makes her more compelling, but I think is like almost a better setup for the sequels we didn't get. Because I was actually thinking, so I actually have this in my notes, Chris. You mentioned how the tagline of the film and the marketing hook was "Who is Salt?" And I don't know that I have the sequels written in my head necessarily, but I will tell you that to me, the tagline for Salt 2 would have been, "Where is Salt?"
Yeah.
Because now, like, we're on like a hunt for her, right? Because now, like, both the Russians are looking for her, but the CIA is still trying to catch her as well. And then the third film, of course, the capper of the trilogy is "Why is Salt?" And that's the movie where you now get more into her psychology, and you actually this would be like the little retconny one, but you start to learn a little bit more about when did she actually start to realize this about herself. What were her, like, this is where the one where you really get into her motivations. And yes, that ultimately, again, is the Bourne trilogy, essentially, you know, a trilogy about someone learning more and more about their identity. But hey, if you're going to rip off the best. And I just liked it as a hook. I think it would have been really fun if it was "Who is Salt? Where is Salt? Why is Salt?"
I thought you were going to go with "When is Salt?" And she would
time
traveling to the Soviet Russia and just take him out.
Salt versus Rasputin.
That'd be amazing.
Yeah.
But you're so right that even with those hooks, the Salt movies could very well be the new type of Bond. You know what I mean? Like very much, or Mission Impossible. Like every episode of the cinematic adventures of Salt are her taking down another Soviet or Russian sleeper cell.
Well, that's the thing. It's like it's even more compelling then, because, you know, the thing about Mission Impossible and Bond is that they always are following orders of like a higher kind of government, right? And what would make Salt an interesting franchise is she, at the end of this, is not working for the Russians, but she's not working for the Americans either. In fact, she is still persona non grata to the U.S. government. She is still an enemy combatant to us, technically.
Yeah.
And she is also now a rogue agent for the Russians. And that's what makes her a compelling character. You wouldn't have to tell standard spy stories with her. You're not looking at a character who's unencumbered by any like allegiance to a nation. And I think that's like so kind of cool. And it's really frustrating that we didn't get to see that play out, because you wouldn't have to have it only be her against Russia. She could suddenly come back and go after something in the U.S., or she could kind of go anywhere in the world. And I'm sure, you know, Angelina Jolie would have loved that. She's already a globe-trotting hero in real life. Let's just bring it into the movies again. Yeah.
Well, she did want to make a sequel. They all wanted to make a sequel. As we said in the beginning, this was quite the large financial hit, especially released 1 week after Inception. This movie obviously had some legs. Maybe not in the mental lexicon as Inception did, but everybody was excited. Phillip Noyce was optimistic about directing it. Lorenzo di Bonaventura had expressed further interest in producing it, saying, "Angie, I know, love that character and would love to explore the character some more first and foremost." And weirdly, the person who kiboshed the movie was Jolie herself. Just not happy with the script. Couldn't get it right. They hired a bunch of other writers. They hired Becky Johnston, who had worked on 7 Years in Tibet. And then Arthur Newman came on as well to rewrite the Kurt Wimmer script. And then just kind of fell apart after that.
Yeah, it fell apart, and then they did the thing which happens with a lot of these action franchises, where you knew like any chance of a further movie was dead when they started shopping around Salt as a TV show instead. They were gonna kind of reboot it as a European television market show, and we've seen things like like The Transporter and even Hannah get turned into a small screen fare. That's usually like a death knell for any chance of a sequel, because I think they were trying to hold on to this for a bit. You know, like they got to 2016 before that kind of started to happen. You'll see articles published today where like, is there any chance of still a Salt sequel? I think at this point, no. I think that ship has sailed, unfortunately. If this movie, as you said, if this movie had more, if it hung around a little bit in the public consciousness a bit more, maybe there'd be like a cool impetus to do like, it wouldn't be a legacy sequel, right? But just like, Angelina Jolie's finally coming back to Salt. But unfortunately, I do think this movie was like a little forgotten to a certain degree for being such a hit at the time. I don't think it held on the way it could have. So I doubt we would see that today.
Before we wrap up here, can we just go back to Kurt Wimmer saying that this was very much about him and his wife?
Yeah, let's explore that a little bit.
Yeah, should we put on an APB on them and maybe see what that's about? Because all right.
I mean, to be fair, we haven't read the Edwin A. Salt script. I do know one thing when Jolie came on, I alluded to this earlier, and I can finally circle back around to it. One reason she wanted to have Brian Helgeland come in and kind of rework it was it sounds like in the original script, Salt had a kid as well. There was like a kid in the mix. And apparently the third act of the original script was Salt having to save his wife and child from the baddies. And apparently Jolie did not like that because she didn't like the idea of a mother having to like neglect their kid and like not tell the kid about the truth of who they are. So I think she was just as with that kind of, as you said, she has many kids. She's very kind of motherly. She just wanted that element sort of removed. I think she was just kind of more attached to the idea of let's just have it be me and the husband. And in fact, let's even have the husband's relationship maybe, as you said, not be super, super developed, but be the spark that lights the fire of me turning good. But we don't need the kid there.
And I think she's right. I think you only need the spouse at that point.
Yes. Yeah.
I've been on record on this podcast, but definitely in private, that I find the use of children and like animals and pets sort of cheap sometimes. Mm-hmm. And I think in this case, it would come off as cheap. You don't need to have the mother, going to save her child. And it's like, it just doesn't... It doesn't really gel, especially with when she is actually a Russian plant. like she is technically a bad person. So she wasn't supposed to have a relationship, so at least she held up some end of her bargain. You know what I mean? Like, I think that adds a little bit of some levels there, that she's like, okay, well, I allowed myself to love this person, but I am definitely not going to bring a child into this lie. You know?
So. Yep. So yeah, I think it's at the end of the day, I think it's just safe to say that this would get a pretty high recommendation from both of us. Correct? I think it's a movie that is a little too forgotten today, and I would like to see a slight rediscovery of Salt, as it were.
Definitely. It does what it sets out to do. It's got a compelling mystery, keeps you guessing, really fun action, and again, all held together by the leading lady, Angelina Jolie, which we said it so many times already, but we are definitely big fans of her. And if you haven't seen her new firefighter movie that we mentioned before, Those Who Wish Me Dead, definitely check that one out.
Make a double feature of it. Have a Salt Those Who Wish Me Dead night.
That would actually be, I might do that.
Yeah, I know, like, you look at her career and, like, kind of, her life in general, there are definitely times where Angelina Jolie is more interested in acting than others. There's times where she kind of steps away from the spotlight. But I'll just implore Hollywood, anytime Angelina Jolie is more engaged and investing in acting again, give her every action movie. Like, this is your big female action star, Hollywood. Like, please, she's already done a lot of action movies, but I don't think she's done enough. I want to see more Salts. I want to see more of Those Who Wish Me Dead. I want to see more Wanteds. She's got the chops. She kicks ass. So more, please.
Absolutely. And remember, Trev, she never wanted to be a Bond girl. She wanted to be James Bond. Mm-hmm. So next episode of Failure to Franchise will be the first installment of our spin-off show, Success to Series, about James Bond 007. So it's kind of nice that this has segued into that. I'm genuinely looking forward to talking James Bond with you. We'll talk about which eras we love, which is our favorite films of it, why they've stood the test of time, speculate on who's going to replace Daniel Craig. I think it's just going to be a nice, fun, looser conversation. Less research, more anecdotal, more just like, more of a discussion, you know?
Yeah, and I don't think we need to like necessarily both rank our entire Bond like series, but I'm sure we can like maybe rank our Bonds, right? Like who's your favorite Bond, you know, in general and things like that. But yeah, it's gonna be fun. It's you know, as you said, we obviously we liked this movie, and we've liked quite a few of the movies we've done recently. But in general, we have to watch a lot of crap and talk about a lot of crap, and it'll be nice to just talk about, well, not that Bond doesn't have any crap, but it's in general to talk about a franchise that I know means a lot to both of us, and to talk about why.
Yeah. So follow along at F2F Pod. That's at F2, the number 2F Pod on all the socials. Like us there, like us everywhere. Rate, review, whatever you do. Give us a star rating. That'd be awesome. And then just join the tribe and hit that subscribe. Follow along with our failures and successes, and more to come, because we actually have planned out the entire year, and we got some good stuff coming. So yeah.
Now, Chris, I've been holding back this entire time, but I can't do it anymore. I can't resist. I know you're gonna hate me, but what about a Salt sequel where she teams up with Peppa Pig, called Salt and Peppa? Come, I know, but
it'll just be me and James Bond.
Yeah, actually, I was actually wondering if you did like it. I'll tell you why. This is me reading between lines that don't need to be read between.
Yeah.
But when I said the thing about how I was watching the director's cut, and I was like, I made that joke where I was like, well, I respect director's visions, and you were like, well, I respect my time, and I was like, wait, does that mean he doesn't like it? Is that that's what I wondered? But
every once in a while, I like to throw you off my scent.